Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into another chilling true crime story. Let's talk about manipulation, a psychological strategy used by some to achieve their goals without regard for others' feelings. A master manipulator knows exactly how to keep people around, employing a variety of tactics to bind them for years. In romantic relationships, this type of manipulation often leaves one partner questioning their decisions, feeling guilty, and suffering from damaged self-esteem. Relationships with a manipulator typically start perfectly. These individuals are experts at building trust, charming their way into hearts, and appearing completely supportive. They seem caring, understanding, and empathetic, just the person you'd want to share all your highs and lows with. Over time, they identify your vulnerabilities and begin to exploit them, sometimes even driving others to commit crimes, making them believe they're acting on their own or for a noble cause. Our focus today is on Nicole Lenowee, a case that highlights how a man can cunningly manipulate women who love him. He managed to prevent one lover from leaving him for many years, slowly breaking down her emotional well-being and convincing her she couldn't manage without him. He even drove another lover to commit a crime under the guise of a heroic act to save a child. He meticulously planned every detail, but thankfully, evidence from street surveillance cameras helped bring him to justice. Who is Nicole Lenowee? Known as Nikki Lenowee Ford, she was born on July 11, 1989, in a small town in northern Minnesota, USA. Little is known publicly about her parents or her early life. It's said that her father left when she was very young, leaving her and her mother to fend for themselves. Despite the challenges, her mother ensured Nikki had everything she needed and a solid education. Nikki was a standout student and athlete during her school years, particularly shining in track and field and martial arts. As she approached graduation, she made a firm decision to pursue a career in law enforcement, driven by a desire to combat crime. She worked hard to pass all necessary exams and meet the physical requirements for entering the police academy, where she graduated with honors. After academy, Nikki moved from her small hometown to the bustling city of Minneapolis. In 2010, she joined the Minneapolis Police Department as an assistant investigator, and her dedication eventually earned her a promotion to investigator. Her colleagues saw her as determined and fearless, always ready to take on risks. However, despite her strong professional demeanor, Nikki's personal life took a different turn. Without her realizing, she became the victim of a sophisticated manipulator, marking the beginning of a troubling relationship. In 2012, at a Taekwondo competition, 23-year-old Nicole met Timothy Amahur, a coach and martial arts expert who was 8 years her senior. Initially, Nicole didn't show much interest in him. However, Timothy was immediately struck by Nicole's slender figure, long hair, and charming smile. Known as a charmer with many romantic interests, Timothy was a man who rarely faced rejection. He was adept at winning the affection of the women he was interested in, often juggling relationships with several at once. Timothy lived in Minneapolis too, and soon discovered where Nikki trained. He managed to get her phone number and initially offered her personal training services. However, he quickly started to court her, winning over her heart in no time. Nikki saw Timothy as kind, open, and caring, a truly charming man. She developed sincere affection for him and soon fell deeply in love. They began a romantic relationship and started dating. At first, Timothy was gallant, caring, and went out of his way to prove he was dependable. He was strong, intelligent, eloquent, and had a knack for captivating the women who fell for him. Their relationship moved fast, and after just a month and a half, they decided to move in together. The first 6 months were wonderful. Nicole felt happy and loved. She trusted him completely, believing there were no secrets between them. However, Timothy's behavior began to shift gradually. He started revealing his true nature, but did it so subtly that Nicole didn't become alarmed for quite some time. Timothy was attractive, witty, and charismatic, with a muscular build. He was popular with women, a fact he took great pride in, and even after they were living together, he didn't stop flirting with other women, often in front of Nicole. This deeply hurt her and made her feel humiliated. Initially, Nicole hoped that Timothy would eventually drop his bachelor habits, become more reserved, and settle down. But as months passed, nothing changed. Meanwhile, Timothy assured her of his love, being passionate and tender at home. Yet, outside, he didn't miss a chance to flirt and often engaged in affairs. Soon, Timothy openly showed annoyance at Nicole's jealousy. He began to snap at her, stating he would behave as he wanted, and she had no right to dictate his actions. However, he usually apologized afterward, telling Nikki that no one else would ever love her as much as he did. Despite the pain, she forgave him time and again. Continuing to plan for the future, a minor domestic argument in the fall of 2014 took a dangerous turn when Timothy suddenly flew into a rage. He grabbed Nicole by the throat and squeezed so hard that she struggled to breathe and nearly passed out. Coming to his senses, he released her and pushed her away, causing her to fall and hit a wall. In that moment, Nicole realized she was in a harmful relationship that needed to end. Yet, her emotional attachment to Timothy was so strong that his subsequent apology led her to forgive him once again. Beyond his aggression and unfaithfulness, another troubling trait emerged. Timothy was extremely jealous and obsessively controlling. He monitored Nicole's every move, took her phone without permission, checked her contacts, messages on messengers and social networks, and scrutinized who she talked to and where she was. This controlling behavior continued for years. Timothy could create a scandal from nothing, unjustly accusing Nicole of being unfaithful, while he himself frequently cheated and sometimes resorted to physical violence. Yet, he continued to convince her that no one else would ever love her as he did. If she ever tried to leave, he would resort to blackmail, threatening to end his life and blaming her. In November 2015, after another violent argument, Nikki packed her bags. Holding a suitcase, she left the house. Timothy, who had not believed she would actually leave, chased after her. He caught her outside, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her back into the house. But when Nicole began to scream and struggle, drawing the attention of neighbors, Timothy had no choice but to let her go. After years in an abusive and manipulative relationship, Nicole could finally breathe a sigh of relief. However, Timothy was not ready to give up. He changed his approach, shifting from threats and blackmail to romantic gestures. He waited for her after work, sent flowers to her home, wrote tender messages, and begged for another chance. For over a month, Nikki remained firm, refusing to return to him. In December of that year, Nicole discovered she was pregnant. Keeping the baby was her immediate decision, even though it wasn't part of her plans. Knowing the manipulative potential of this news, she tried to hide her pregnancy, but couldn't keep it a secret for long. They still had many mutual friends, and by January 2016, Timothy learned she was expecting. There was no doubt he was the father, and he used this to try to convince her to come back to him, arguing that their child should have a complete family. Nicole, having grown up without a father, understood the challenges ahead for her and her child, but knew that a life with Timothy, a manipulator and cruel person, would not be beneficial. She firmly refused to return to him, though she still had feelings for him. She made it clear that while she wouldn't resume their relationship, she would allow him to be involved in their child's life. On June 20th, 2016, Nicole gave birth to a healthy boy named Callahan Amaher, after Timothy acknowledged paternity and expressed a willingness to co-parent. However, giving the baby his surname and legally recognizing him as the father soon proved to be a mistake. Despite Timothy's promises to be a good father and his pleas to reunite for Callahan's sake, his lack of genuine interest in his son quickly became evident. Timothy had hoped that having a child would be a way to manipulate Nicole, but she was no longer affected by his tactics, and soon he lost interest in the baby. Nicole took nearly a year of maternity leave and dedicated herself entirely to caring for her young son. During this time, She didn't consider starting new relationships, instead fully immersing herself in motherhood. Meanwhile, Timothy continued his carefree lifestyle with numerous lovers and casual connections. He even had a peculiar system in place, a purple light in his bedroom that signaled when he was alone and expecting company. Any of his lovers could see this signal and visit him. The light would then go off, indicating his bed was no longer available. This arrangement resembled something from a red light district and suited Timothy and his partners well. In 2016, shortly after Callahan's birth, 36-year-old Timothy began living with an 18-year-old protege named Colin Larson, whom he had trained since she was 14. Colin was deeply in love with her mentor despite the significant age difference. Initially, they concealed their relationship, claiming Colin was just renting a room in his house. However, it soon became clear to everyone that there was a romantic relationship between them. Timothy was delighted with his young lover, and according to friends, Colin behaved like a naive child, eager to please the man she adored. By the summer of 2017, financial pressures forced Nicole to return to work. She was raising her child alone, receiving hardly any support from Callahan's father, and the money had run out, prompting her to end her maternity leave early. At that time, Nicole was working as a forensic expert at the Maine Police Headquarters in Minneapolis. Her work schedule was unpredictable. During the day, her son Callahan was in daycare, but if Nicole got held up at work or was called in unexpectedly, she would ask Timothy to look after their son. She had a couple of reasons for this. First, she believed it was good for Callahan to spend time with his father, who had recently promised to be more involved in his upbringing. Second, since Timothy wasn't contributing financially, Nicole thought he could at least help by saving her the cost of a nanny. However, Timothy did not enjoy spending time with his son. He saw it as a burden and was unwilling to take on the responsibility, so he often shifted it onto his young lover, Colin. Colin quickly grew fond of Callahan and enjoyed caring for him. Meanwhile, Timothy manipulated the situation, claiming to Colin that Nicole was a bad mother who was eager to offload her son whenever possible. In the spring of 2017, Nicole began a new romantic relationship, her first since breaking up with Tim. Her new partner was Donovan Ford, a fellow police officer who treated her and Callahan with tenderness and care, and even expressed a willingness to adopt the boy. Everything seemed wonderful until Timothy found out about Nicole's new relationship. Although Timothy had long stopped loving Nicole and had ceased trying to connect with her, the mere fact that she was now happy and not alone ignited a furious desire in him to disrupt or completely destroy these new relationships. Timothy chose to use their son and the unsuspecting Colin, who believed every word he said, as his main tools in this malicious endeavor. He regularly reported to social services, falsely claiming that Donovan was abusing Callahan and that Nicole was doing nothing to stop it. As a result, Child Protective Services frequently visited Nicole and Donovan's home. They never found any evidence of abuse, but Nicole and her partner were interrogated like criminals each time. They knew Timothy was behind these accusations, but felt powerless to stop him, and this harassment continued for years. At the same time, Timothy convinced Colin that Callahan was in danger, alleging that Nicole and Donovan were cruel to him and might even end his life in what they would claim was an accident. Colin, deeply influenced by Timothy, felt a strong sympathy for the boy who had grown up before her eyes and believed she needed to protect him. Timothy harassed Nicole and her new partner relentlessly, threatening them, trying to provoke them, and even filing false police reports claiming they were abusing their official powers as police officers, hoping they would get fired. Donovan attempted to have a man-to-man talk with Timothy, but it was fruitless. The ex-boyfriend continued to terrorize Nicole and her new partner, turning their lives into a real nightmare. Eventually, Timothy escalated his efforts beyond just threats and harassment and took the matter to court, claiming he wanted sole custody of their son. Nicole hadn't seen this coming and was genuinely frightened, knowing her ex's talent for lying and manipulating. She realized that Timothy didn't really want custody of their son. He just wanted to retaliate against her for finding happiness with Donovan. In response, Nicole decided to seek a restraining order against Timothy, citing his erratic behavior and the threat he posed to her and her family. She was confident that the custody battle would likely resolve in her favor, but she also knew that the legal process could drag on for years, as Timothy was not one to give up easily. Meanwhile, Timothy continued to disrupt her life with various lies. He even accused her of attempting on his life, claiming she had tried to run him over with her car. He alleged that he narrowly escaped and that Nicole only ran over his foot. However, he couldn't prove any of these allegations in court due to a lack of witnesses, camera footage, and any actual injury. In September 2022, the custody case went to court. Timothy tried to defame Nicole again, accusing her of harming their child. He even got support from Colin, who backed up his story. He tried to persuade little Callahan to say his mom and Donovan were abusing him, but the child not only refused to lie, but also told the court that his father was coaxing him with sweets to make false claims. The court considered Callahan's testimony and awarded sole custody to Nicole. Just when Nicole thought she could finally relax, Timothy appealed the decision. Initially, he was granted the right to see the child once a week under Nicole's supervision. Later, the court allowed him to spend time alone with Callahan, which greatly upset and frightened Nicole. As one might expect from him, after several more court appeals, and to avoid further disputes, Timothy was allowed to see his son at a specialized family center. This facility was designed to prevent parents in conflict from meeting each other and causing further psychological damage to their children. It featured multiple separate parking lots and separate entrances, allowing one parent to drop off the child for the other parent to pick up without the ex-spouses having to interact or even see each other. On April 19, 2022, a shocking incident occurred at the family center. Nicole was there to pick up her son after a visit with his father. She parked her car and was walking towards the entrance when suddenly, a figure dressed in black clothing, a mask, and a hood approached her. The assailant pulled out a gun and shot her 4 times at close range before quickly fleeing in a black pickup truck. Incredibly, Nicole remained conscious despite her injuries. She managed to dial emergency services, but due to one of the bullets hitting her neck and narrowly missing her carotid artery, damaging her vocal cords, she could only make gurgling sounds. At that critical moment, a woman who witnessed the event came to Nicole's aid. She had been passing by when she heard the shots and saw the black-clad figure flee. The woman quickly pulled over, waited to ensure the shooter had left, and then rushed to help Nicole. She was the one who spoke to the dispatcher, provided the location, and applied pressure to Nicole's wounds to stop the bleeding, effectively saving her life. Nicole spent several days on the brink of life and death in the hospital. She lost a lot of blood, and her vital organs were affected, but despite the severity of her injuries, the doctors managed to stabilize her condition. Medical professionals believed Nicole was incredibly fortunate, as she was just millimeters away from death due to 2 bullets, one that passed near an artery and another that nearly struck her heart. After surviving, the urgent task was to determine who wanted her dead. Nicole had no doubts that her ex-lover Timothy was the one who had shot her, and she reported this to the police as soon as she regained consciousness. While Nicole was in a coma, Donovan had also told the police that, apart from Timothy, Nicole had no other enemies. Timothy was indeed interrogated first due to these accusations, but he had a solid alibi. He was at the family center with his son at the time of the attack, a fact confirmed by staff and internal surveillance footage. Meanwhile, the police also explored the possibility that someone among the criminals Nicole had previously arrested and helped incarcerate might have organized the attack. Although her profession might have earned her some enemies, Nicole was convinced that Timothy was behind the assassination attempt. At the crime scene, police found 4 casings. A camera at the nearest intersection captured a suspicious black Dodge Ram pickup running a red light without license plates. This same vehicle was mentioned by the eyewitness who had helped save Nicole's life. Therefore, it was necessary to check what vehicles Timothy owned. During another interrogation, Timothy claimed he had a Chevrolet Traverse SUV and a Dodge Challenger in his garage, but insisted he never owned a pickup. However, the investigation revealed he was lying. A black Dodge Ram, identical to the one used by the shooter, was registered in his name. Once the truth came to light, Amaher was arrested pending further investigation. When shown the surveillance footage, he admitted he did own such a vehicle, but claimed he rarely used it, and it mostly sat idle. Furthermore, he mentioned that his pickup had colorful stickers on the doors and hood. This was verified, and indeed, his vehicle had stickers, but they appeared to have been recently applied. However, all the evidence was still circumstantial, and law enforcement needed to find the weapon and the actual shooter to fully resolve the case. It turned out that Timothy's vehicle was equipped with a satellite navigation system, which allowed investigators to trace the vehicle's entire route on the day of the attack. The records showed that the car was parked at the back entrance of a Taekwondo school on the evening of April 18th, where it stayed all night and almost the entire next day. Road cameras recorded that the vehicle arrived there with license plates, but left the next evening without them. The person using the vehicle that day was of short stature, slight build, and from a distance, the silhouette appeared feminine. Based on this, law enforcement decided to immediately detain and interrogate Timothy's live-in girlfriend, Colin Larson. During a search at the couple's home, they didn't find the weapon used in the crime, but discovered ammunition of the same caliber. The frightened Colin almost immediately began to confess, confirming that Timothy was the mastermind behind the crime. Colin believed that her lover had good intentions, thinking they were trying to save little Callahan from what they perceived as a cruel mother. Over the years, Timothy had manipulated his trusting young girlfriend, convincing her that the boy was being mistreated and subjected to violence, and she had believed every word he said. Colin felt a deep sympathy for the child and truly believed that Timothy wanted to protect his son and had his best interests at heart. However, the trial of the conspirators that began in November of the same year painted a different picture. Colin confessed that Timothy had given her the firearm, and after the assassination attempt, he took it back and disposed of it, although she didn't know what he did with it exactly. The prosecution's case was largely based on circumstantial evidence, which the defense lawyers highlighted. Nonetheless, the decisive factor was Colin's confession. She was still in disbelief that her lover had deceived her, convinced they were committing a righteous act. The court also took into account the testimony of Nicole, who described Timothy's manipulative nature and his skill at controlling the women who loved him. 42-year-old Timothy Amaher was found guilty of first-degree attempted murder, incitement, and aiding and abetting. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison, the maximum term for such cases. Colin Larson, 24, as the executor, received a 16-year sentence. A year after the assassination attempt, Nicole had fully recovered both physically and emotionally. She and Donovan legalized their relationship, and Donovan became the father Callahan could ever wish for. The now married Ford couple is expecting their first child together, and the woman who saved Nicole's life at the shooting scene will be the child's godmother. It should be noted that Timothy Amaher, with good behavior, will be eligible for parole in 2035. However, he will be prohibited from coming within 100 meters of his son, former lover, and her family, and from attempting any form of contact with them. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel for many more shocking stories ahead.